Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to be showing you some of the basic tools needed to perform an endotracheal intubation, so stick with us. Alright, so when we're performing an endotracheal intubation or intubating a patient, it's because they're not able to breathe for themselves usually, or we want to breathe for them while they're having surgery or they're having some sort of procedure. We want to be able to put a tube down into their airway so that we can breathe for them and protect their airway. And so when we're talking about that procedure, I'll have another video that takes us through the steps of performing an endotracheal intubation. But for this video, I really wanted to kind of go through the tools themselves and kind of give a little more detail of the different tools that we use. So first of all, I want to show you the handle. So this handle is a pretty normal size for handles. A lot of times in the emergency departments, we actually have disposables, kind of like a one and done kind of handles. But this one has an area where you can open up and put 2C batteries inside. So it's not rechargeable, but you can use different batteries on it. So this is a pretty typical handle. Sometimes for like pediatrics, they make smaller, thinner ones, but this one is pretty standard sized. Okay. Typically, we have two major blades that we use when we're intubating. We have the straight blade, which is called the Miller, and we have the curved blade, which is called the Macintosh. Now, a good way to remember the difference between a Macintosh and a Miller is that a Macintosh has a C in it, and you can see that this blade has a C shape to it. So that's the way I remember that this is a Macintosh. A Miller blade, on the other hand, is straight. And so you see this is straight, has a little L shape to it, and that's how I remember that a Miller is a straight blade. So hopefully that helps y'all remember the difference between the two. Now, each one of these is able to be placed on the handle itself. You can interchange them, and really when you decide which blade you're going to use, it's really a matter of preference. So it's kind of like what feels best in your hand, what you're most comfortable with. Generally speaking, I would say 2 out of 3 persons in my experience tend to use the Miller, and I know that others just rely heavily on the Mac. Now, when we're looking at the size of the blade, you can see here at the butt of the blade, it'll say MIL or Miller 2, okay? The smaller the number of the blade, the smaller the blade. So it starts all the way down at, I think, 00 for premature babies, which is really tiny little straight blade, and it goes all the way up to size 4 for large adults. Same thing for Macintosh. I believe it starts at a 0. You'll see this is a Mac 3. Starting at 0 for neonates and going up to probably size 4 for a large adult, okay? What we have here in front of us to kind of look at and experiment with is a Miller 2 and a Mac 3. Now in these blades, they're equipped with a fiber optic light source, and these light sources kind of travel back to display the light that comes from the handle itself. And like I said, they're interchangeable. You can use either the Miller or the Mac on your handle. And how we attach them on there is the curved little portion here on the handle goes to the front, and we can stick the blade on. You'll hear it kind of snap, and then we'll engage it. And when we see that, the light turns on, okay? So we can do that. We can also do it with the Mac. So we have like this, engage it on and up, okay? Now, in the video where I demonstrate the procedure, I'll show you that you're always gonna use your blade in your non-dominant hand, which for me, these are right-handed blades. So you're gonna use your left hand to use them. You can see that the light source is on one side, and there is a pathway where your tube is going to go through, and that's why this is intended to be used with our left hand, okay? Another thing that I wanted to go over a little bit in more depth is the tube. So this is an endotracheal tube. This is an ET tube for short, and this one is, I believe, a 6.5 millimeter tube. Yep, 6.5. And so I'm going to take it out of its bag so we can take a look at it a little bit closer. So endotracheal tubes are going to have a little balloon that we can blow up, and that is going to inflate the cuff at the bottom to help keep the tube in place. It has a little curve to it, but we usually recommend it staying semi-straight with a little curve kind of towards the tip. Inside we have a stylus. So you can see that it's a rigid stylus to kind of keep the form of the ET tube intact, so when we go in it doesn't kind of collapse on itself. And one really important thing to note is that the stylus should not come above the tip of the ET tube, because we don't want that to accidentally puncture our organ or the trachea that we're going to be placing this in. Okay. Another thing you're going to be needing is a syringe. Now here at my home, I don't have a 10 cc syringe, I have a 5 cc syringe, but these balloons typically fit 10 cc's of air. And so after you place that, you'll have air in your syringe, you'll place it on the balloon, and then you'll inflate it. And I just want to demonstrate how it inflates the cuff at the bottom. And so this one would fit 10 cc's of air, this is only 5. And then you would take this off, and that's what keeps the tube in place once you have it inside. So just like with the blades, the tubes, the higher the number, or the bigger the number, the bigger the tube. So this is a 6.5. It is the size that we like to use with our mannequins in the laboratory setting. I think once you get out in the field, you'll learn how to size these tubes for your patient. Another thing I wanted to mention is that generally speaking, for pediatrics, across the board generally use the Miller blades because they have really airways that can be easily damaged and kind of floppy epiglottises. So we tend to use the Miller to kind of hold it in place, hold it out of the way. And that's something I wanted to touch on a little bit more. So when we use the Miller blade, where the blade is actually going to go over the epiglottis and actually move everything out of the way. When we use the Macintosh blade, because it's curved, this curve actually fits right into what we call the vallecula, which is actually the space between the base of the tongue and the epiglottis. So this fits in there and doesn't move the epiglottis out of the way. So those are two techniques that we use, two different blades that we use. When you get out and you start practicing, you'll find what fits your hand better. In the laboratory setting, I actually prefer using the Macintosh, but either one is fine, and I do encourage you to get practice on both blades with your mannequin in the laboratory setting. So that's all I wanted to cover for this video. Be sure to check out my video where I show the step-by-step approach to intubating a patient. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you later.